Yeah, so we were talking a bit about Mandalorian, how they've got this behind the scenes stuff going on.
Yeah, we were talking about because they're doing the special features run or whatever you want to call it, where they go over the whole making of it. We're talking about
They've basically like split it up into like a 4-part documentary.
Yeah, and
how many parts is it? It's like 4 or 5 parts.
They've released the 6th one now, I think.
Okay.
So they're still doing stuff with it.
Yeah.
So a lot to cover, I guess. Well, they made innovations in the technology. So,
well, and they're able to split the perspective between all the different directors that they had,
which I liked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It really added something because it's not. What made the Mandalorian special to me was that it was a conglomerate of different minds, stretching it in different ways, but it didn't like break the mold.
Yeah.
Which I didn't want it to. Nobody wanted it to break the mold for Star Wars anyway. They'll tell you what they think they want, but nobody knows what they wanted with this project. What I've been noticing watching it, though, is like I think that's really what Lucas wanted to do in the first place anyway, was just make newer technology for movies. I think that's what he was most into.
That was probably more what he was into
I think because he designed like the THX and the sound design thing. They invented that sound studio and those techniques that are used in like every other movie now.
Yeah.
And like those basic techniques that we're using on our laptop now, it's because they made that possible. And he was trying to build this blue screen thing on the Lucas Arts ranch for a couple of years.
Oh,
before.
yeah, that had to have been years and years.
He was working on that. So like he was on the set for the whole thing in Mandalorian, but he was like all about how can we do this and how can we do that, and he's watching like his little things grow because he still has take in the company, I think, in the innovations of stuff. But he was never. Fix my audio. Is it down a little bit?
No. I was fixing mine.
Is there feedback in there?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's I gotta.
No, what you're hearing is what it's picking up. So.
Okay, I gotta learn how to tune myself. I have it set like I do when I play Call of Duty, which is slightly in the background. I don't want to hear any voice chat really. Mostly because I'm just gonna be yelling the whole time. But he's it's these innovations that have led. These are the important things about Star Wars: is the envelope pushing. They've changed things technologically for movies and made it easier for these other things to advance. And like Star Wars was one of the most advanced movies at the time when it came out.
Yeah.
And then you had that middle period where the most advanced thing they could do was the green screen, and they're talking to the tennis balls and what have you. And nobody, you can tell, like your actors aren't giving you a lifelike performance, I guess. I don't know how to, because like in the third movie, I specifically remember Natalie Portman being like deadpan for most of it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And she just is not all there, and there's nobody to click off of or run dialogue with. So it just looks like you're talking, because they're literally talking to a wall. So it looks like she was talking to a wall because she was talking to a wall. Believe it or not, there's no coruscant in the background. Hate to break the romance of the movies for everybody, but it's because I think it's largely due to all the green screen stuff, because it's like all that those movies were.
Yeah.
And they just don't age well. You know what I mean?
No, they don't. They never really were, because it was a lot of very unrefined technology and effects going on in that.
Yeah.
And unrefined techniques. And that's the problem you get to when you're doing cutting edge stuff.
It's one of those things where it's like, I'm glad we're past that. We're getting past that now, where we're starting to get over that whole boner for CGI stuff, which I thought was never going to happen. I thought this was going to be life forever.
Yeah,
we're trapped in this like infinite void of like cheaply computer animated.
What do you want to bet one of the factors in James Cameron taking so long to do a second Avatar is he has realized this new avenue for rear projection,
Probably.
and has realized that he can't go down the same road he did for the first Avatar, and has to try to adapt this newer technology.
They were talking about that where
it.
Jon Favreau was talking about how he did the Jungle Book.
Yeah.
And they did it like they did Avatar, where it's on green screen, and they have to set everything up, and then shoot. And then they go back, and they're like, I don't like that angle. They're like, we got to reshoot that angle.
Yeah. So
they have to reset all of the green screen and blue stuff around it for that shot, which takes all day
Yeah.
to reset everything to do one shot, which is why it's taking so fucking long. And Avatar that's why it costs so much money, is because they're sitting there shooting.
Well, and I think with Avatar, they didn't have any like real-time previs that they would be able to compare shots to.
No.
Like I think even Favreau for Jungle Book, and this is something that also came out of the Skywalker Ranch stuff, is this real-time previs where they'll be able to film on a blue screen set, but they'll have previs set up, overlaid the right there in real time, so that they can
redo it and reshoot it in the same
much more accurately,
same couple hours.
I remember the train robbery scene in the Solo movie relied heavily on that.
That's fair. We never really talked about the Solo movie too much.
Well, because it didn't, other than being a financial failure and stuff, just it doesn't have much impact.
There's nothing really special about it. There were parts I liked about it. I liked it actually well enough, you know what I mean? But I liked it when it wasn't trying to be something that it wasn't. There was too many. There's a lot of cringe moments.
A lot of cringy, like winks and nods to
where it's like,
this is a thing that you know.
I didn't need to know how he got his fucking gun. I don't care.
Yeah.
And to some people, like, you're into props.
Well, and it's not even a satisfying like explanation. He just gives it to him.
He stares at it for 2 seconds and looks down at his lap. Oh,
like there's nothing even like implied to it that it's anything special at all or anything. It's just
it's an old junky gun that he gave him, and they've somehow made it where it's like, oh no, it's a really fancy, cool pistol. They don't make them like this anymore. And I'm like, whatever. He fucking just handed him like a junky pistol. Here's an old revolver, and it's like covered in mud and stuff. Here's my old gun. You can have it. And they're like, do you remember this? And they're like zooming in on the 2 longest seconds in the movie, or staring at that fucking gun. And him talking to Chewbacca, and he's like, oh, well, I'll fucking call you Chewie, because I somehow know how to speak Chewbacca, even though I never met your species before ever until this moment.
I've been living on one planet my whole life as a freaking gutter rat street urchin.
I took an audiobook class on how to speak Wookiee, because you guys are so...
Rosetta Stone, while I was learning to be a freaking pilot in the
You're
Imperial...
so fucking prevalent in the galaxy, everybody knows about you, so let's...
Yeah.
There's so many Wookiees everywhere, right? Everybody just has one in their pocket, so we all need to know how to talk to him. Fuck you, dude. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that pissed me off.
Yeah.
But those shots, like the heist, the train heist, that was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed stuff like that.
Well, and that was essentially what the entire movie was built around. Was just around that sequence. That was the entire story. The entire impetus for the whole movie being made, honestly, was that scene. Like, and you can tell, like, because every other scene is just so slapdashed, and it feels like it's from a completely different movie.
Well, it is.
When you watch it in context, because they reshot everything else, with the Ron Howard stuff.
And you can smell it, because they were like, you need to inject more franchise stuff.
And that was what made it so that they were able to do such an extreme thing as to reshoot 80% of the movie, because the entire movie was only based around that 20% in the first place.
Yeah, I can see
the rest of it was throwaway and stuff. In fact, you could have just made that train scene as a freaking little DVD extra on another Star Wars movie with all the actors, and everybody would have been fine. They're just like, hey, like the Marvel shorts that they used to do, where it was just sort of these little in-between side stories that the Marvel movies used to do. I don't know why they stopped doing those. Those were awesome.
Superhero movies are dead.
But
that's why.
But even like, it was like up until I think the second Avengers movie, they were doing these shorts of just little sort of 5-minute side adventures with side characters.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, they that's back when the DVD Blu-ray scene was getting hot.
Yeah. And
so they were like, we need to put stuff in the Blu-rays. And they were shooting them on the production set. So they're like, we have the money to shoot this little side thing real quick.
Yeah, we've still got the actors. Like I think the last one they did, which was probably one of the better ones, was the one with Ben Kingsley's Mandarin character when he gets broken out of jail. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, he was one of my favorite characters of Iron Man 3. And people don't talk about Iron Man 3. You know what I mean? Because they were freaked out.
People got freaking butthurt about the Mandarin from that.
And they had to change it for Chinese audiences because you can't have like a racist depiction of a Chinese evil bad guy who
evil
looks like
mystical warlord.
He looks like he looks like what's his name from Big Trouble in Little China? Like, you know, some ridiculous
He basically
bullshit.
is, yeah.
He's the same guy. And they're like, we can't do this. They're like, we can't do this and sell this to China. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, racism, right. That's a thing. Let's not do that. So there was like a stroke of brilliance because he was one of the most interesting parts of that movie where you're like.
Oh, it's a great twist.
Yeah. You're like, what the fuck's going on? And he's just some asshole who's like, yeah, they pay me to pretend to be the guy. And he's like, doesn't even know what's going on. He's like, they just pay me to be the guy. And I hang out with these girls and I do the cocaine and I drink. And then that's it. And I hang out and I do the videos and I'm very menacing. And he's like British and he's not, he's just like some asshole.
It's just Ben Kingsley hamming it up, man. And it's great.
And it's like the bastard son of the Marvel franchise for some people. Cause they were like, you didn't even do a real bad guy. And like, that's the point. Is like, it's not.
Yeah.
That was the point of the movie. It's like, it's other corporations and other countries don't have a face front man. It's like he's fighting whatever. He's fighting a political thing, which leads into Civil War, which is what it leads into his character being like, I see now the error of my ways and see what's going on. We're going to have to take this into politics. Like, you can't just wear the suit and do this thing all the time, which is what the whole point of Civil War was Iron Man's stand on the whole thing.
Well, and freaking, I never really bought into the whole idea that it's like, oh, the Marvel movies all have this problem of not having very compelling villains, and I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, we've had some killer,
there's been some bangers in there,
some banger villains throughout that whole franchise. You had, I mean,
Michael
and one
Keaton.
of the, but it's just. People, I don't know what it is, but like when there's a really good villain, it seems like the movie press just decides to ignore them for the most part, unless there's some sort of like CGI monster or something. They just totally miss them. Like Baron Zemo, freaking Zemo that they had in Civil War was awesome.
Right,
that was a great villain.
He, you mean the warlord guy who's stealing all the guns?
No, he's the guy who's instigating the whole thing in Civil War. How
Oh yeah, right. I'm thinking when you keep saying that, I keep thinking because he was in Winter Soldier is the guy I'm thinking about.
Oh, you're thinking of the Crossbones guy?
Yeah, no, he's not Crossbones. He's the guy who sells the guns that Ultron cuts his arm off. That's the guy I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
And he's foreshadowed in one of the other ones. That guy was like a cool bad guy side character, like the CD.
Yeah.
Gets his arm cut off.
Yeah.
And Ultron was great. But you're talking about these like regular.
Oh, I love
dudes,
the regular dude freaking villains that.
It makes the universe feel like a Marvel universe because
it's
not. If you just have like one crazy bad guy, it doesn't matter. Like the best example I can think of is your Spider-Man: Homecoming. We have Michael Keaton and these they're regular guys, and they're just doing these crazy heists in the background, and those are like what makes Spider-Man his stories the most compelling because it's the dynamic of him.
And they're getting lost in the weeds of all of these big superpowered villains.
Exactly.
And stuff
and it's fallout from the Avengers first Avengers movie where the things come through. They're using the technology, and it's fleshing out the background. Which they haven't done since, really.
Not really.
I thought that was the most interesting take on them being like, yes, this happened, and now it's a major part of the story.
Yeah.
Where they're making these other supervillains with this technology that they found.
Unfortunately, one thing that's kind of weird is something that I was always with the Spider-Man villains is they're doing kind of the same thing that I was complaining about from the first couple Spider-Man movies with the villains, and that was that all the villains in the movies are related to Oscorp in some way.
Oh, you're talking about the Amazing Spider-Man
bullshit?
Like
the Amazing Spider-Man bullshit, and even a little bit into the Sam Raimi stuff. There was always an Oz.
They do a lot of
Corp connection.
They do some campy stuff because of the cartoon. I think the Amazing Spider-Man cartoon, the Oscorp and the Green Goblin thing was a bigger part of that run that people remember before it gets into like Reptile and like the Blade crossover stuff. That was like the big thing, and I think that's what helped light the background for most of the other stuff.
Yeah, I just always got kind of bugged that it all just sort of kept going back, that they kept going back to the well of Oscorp, super science, make bad guy thing. And the same thing is kind of happening with these newer Spider-Man movies, where all these villains are people that Tony Stark personally pissed off at some point.
It's an easy bullshit backdrop to sit on for a guy that it's whatever. It's like your Harry Potter magic. You can insert whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
Because in Harry Potter, they're just like inventing bullshit as it goes along. It's like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where things just continue to evolve. But the problem is there's no repercussions for that movie because it just has to end at that movie.
Yeah.
And JoJo, he has to keep explaining and building on top of what he did before. And he's like, how do I keep writing this? There's a difference. You know what I mean? And they're not held accountable for another production's writing or anything else as far as the details go. All they have to do is plug something like your solo movie, like what we were just talking about. They had to plug Darth Maul for some reason, which freaked a lot of people out because they're like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
But nobody watched the goddamn cartoon. I know maybe 5 people total who watched the cartoon. And they were like, "Oh yeah, Darth Maul."
That does make sense. You'd be there. Yeah, I can totally get into like.
And I was like, "Fuck you, dude." I was
whatever,
like, "You're the only other person who watched that fucking cartoon." It's like I didn't have time to sit there and watch a cartoon. I thought, I'm gonna go see a movie.
And that's kind of the thing I'm afraid of with this Mandalorian stuff going forwards. Is
we're going there, dude. You know we're going there.
Oh man, what's his name? The guy who did the Clone Wars cartoons and.
Which one? The newer one?
Yeah.
I don't remember his name.
Oh, gosh. I'm usually so up on these guys' names.
You're talking about the guy who, because he was just, Disney just picked him back up to do the final season, is what you're talking about?
Yeah.
And so they're doing a tie-in. I haven't watched the final season. I haven't watched any of the show. I've tried. And I'm going to have to just like leave it on in the background. It's not something I can just digest in one sitting. There's too much, like I complain with most Star Wars, they just fucking spoon feed you too much. And like I'm watching, like something like, I'm watching Gundam Wing, for instance, which is the opposite of that, where you have to dive and like pay attention and grab onto what's going on, or you're going to be like, what's going on with the side characters? We're just jumping to robot fight to robot fight. But if you're not paying attention to the twists and turns.
Dave Filoni. That's Dave Filoni, the showrunner for that. And my problem is Dave Filoni's got like a very specific idea of Star Wars, which is what kind of the whole Clone Wars thing is based around.
Right.
And it's very much his, because nothing else made in Star Wars kind of matches what's going on with Clone Wars.
It doesn't.
You know, but he's like, I was picked by George Lucas. So this is George Lucas's vision. He jumps back on that all the time. And that's the thing that cracks me up in this Mandalorian shit is every time they go to him, he just freaking leans on George Lucas. He's just like, well, George picked me. I'm the freaking chosen one. So this is my vision of Star Wars is the legitimate vision of Star Wars. And it's like, ugh. Yeah,
the prophesied son or whatever you want to have it. And it's the problem is what makes Mandalorian work is they're vague about all the details. Everything in Star Wars is very vague. They don't even mention the Jedi. They're just like, oh, I think I've heard of that a long time ago. And so they're like, the child is just the golden child. He's Keanu Reeves and the golden child or whatever. What's that movie?
Well, it's a Golden Child with Eddie Murphy.
That's the one. Yeah. They just he's the MacGuffin child that you're carrying around. You don't have to know anything about it. It's basically.
Well, the thing is, if you've been following Star Wars, just you watched a Star Wars movie, you understand the Force.
You get how it works.
You see, you get how it works, and so
that's what makes this work. Because
this show is treating you that way. They're just like, you get that.
They're not spoon feeding you the whole time, and that's why it works. They're not treating you like a fucking asshole. You know what I mean, or a little kid. They're just like, it's already established. It's sci-fi anyway, so you don't need to know too much about it. You can now know who Boba Fett is. So you're like, okay, he's got the same helmet. I don't care about the Mandalorian background stuff. I don't.
Yeah.
And I don't think the guy coming in from the outside gives a fuck.
No.
They're just like, it's a Western. So it's digestible from that aspect of it's just a cowboy bounty hunter. And he's doing his Clint Eastwood story.
Yeah.
Coming into town for his like serialized Western for the weekly whatever. but it's connected to a bigger part. The kid doesn't matter, but it's going to.
Yeah.
But I'd hope they're not rubbing the Jedi stink all over.
What's funny is something that I feel like they've always failed to do with Star Wars is I keep hearing people and even George Lucas like refer back. He's like, well, the Jedi are based off of a samurai warrior culture, and it's like, well, you never portrayed that very well, bitch. No. Like that. These are the worst samurais, lamest samurais I have ever seen.
They're just space cops.
Like, well, they're space cops in bathrobes.
Basically.
So I'm just like, these are terrible fucking samurai.
It's essentially, it has nothing to do with like.
But that's always culture. Like, even in that Mandalorian thing when Dave Filoni's talking about when he was first talking to George Lucas to try and get the job to do Clone Wars, George Lucas is like talking to him about like his ideas for the Jedi and just like what the. And he name drops Toshiro Mifune, who I believe was actually originally approached. This might be apocryphal, but originally approached to do Obi-Wan. Like George Lucas originally wanted Toshiro Mifune, who I don't know if you know who that is. He's an old school samurai actor. Did the Seven Samurai?
Yeah, he was in
Yojimbo.
He was in Yojimbo. Yes.
Yeah, and so that he wanted him to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, which you look at the name Obi-Wan Kenobi and stuff. You're like, you're trying to cast a Japanese guy.
It's basically the same kind of guy. Yeah,
it's a very weeby kind of.
It's super weeb, dude. This is what turns me off of the whole thing. It's like I'm so.
But then we got Alec Guinness, and Alec Guinness, there's nothing about him that's freaking samurai at all, and so you just ended up with an Alec Guinness. Bridge over the River Kwai, British officer kind of performance. And I only mentioned Bridge over the River Kwai because I think that's the only other movie I've seen with Alec Guinness in it. But
it's been a long time since I've seen Bridge over the River. That's like heyday Hollywood.
Yeah.
I saw a documentary over the real Bridge over River Kwai, and it was like not even close to like what they portrayed in the movie.
Yeah.
It really like ruined that movie for me. Yeah, well, most of his scenes were based off of samurai films. That's what Lucas was into because he was into these original movies like Yojimbo, and like it was really setting the world on fire in the 70s. Like these far out Japanese films were coming out of here and setting the stage for not only like American movies, Italian, you name it, other countries were seeing these, and these are really far out, like really wild. Not to place my weird hippie talk in there, sorry. But it set the standard for what they wanted to try to create, and maybe the original cuts of Star Wars were supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
But that's not what came out in the final process.
That's not what came out. Really, the only person who's ever played a Jedi that I felt actually did kind of give off that vibe was Qui-Gon Jinn. Probably had the most samurai vibe out of everybody.
Yeah, the wise warrior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I felt that. And then they never used him again.
As well as being a tough guy. You could tell this was a guy.
You know what's weird is they reference him at the end of the third movie and never see him again.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they ever shot something. And they were just like, don't put it in. Don't put it in.
Leave Liam out.
Don't put the ghosts in there. Don't cheapen the end of the third movie with space ghosts like they did with the last one.
Yeah, we're already branching way too much around here.
Because like the last movie, they famously came back and fucked it up by making Darth Vader 20 years or 30 years younger than he was like in the original cut of the movie, where they're like. At first, like you see his face, Luke sees his father's face, and he's old. And he's like, "Wow, this is the face of my father." So he is probably going to remember that pretty vividly. Like this is his dad's face. And then he's not like, "Who the fuck is this kid? Like, who the fuck is that supposed to be?" Like nobody's like confused. And Hayden Christensen is like, "I'm just here for the check. Like I don't.
Yeah.
They have me on contract. I showed up. I'm trying to make something else happen. It's not really happening for me." Which I would like to see him come back and have a renaissance, like almost like Keanu Reeves, where he comes back when he's older and he might be able to do it. He's been in some other stuff that I liked, where he's not like a fucking robot the whole time, which is like the green screen thing I was talking about. Which
more than likely, fed into that.
Definitely drained
Yeah, you get him away from any kind of special effects heavy.
He was in another one.
And he's okay.
I've talked about it before, where the world is going dark. Like he wakes up and it's like the night of the comet, where everybody just disappears.
Yeah.
But he wakes up and everybody's gone, and as he's walking through the city, he's like realizing as it's getting darker that there's no people anywhere on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And he finds this bar that's like on because the generator's still running. And I guess the guy just disappeared when he showed up. And so like when the lights go off, these shadows take you to this shadow world. And he's like one of the lone survivors of this whole thing. He was pretty good in that.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the movie was called, and I really dug it. And his performance wasn't. It was lively, and he was acting with other people. It was a small production, small cast. And you could tell he was really into it. You know what I mean? And I liked him, and I was like, fuck, he got robbed being in this big franchise movie, and I'm sure it was just a nightmare. Putting these whole things together. Yeah. And the green screen doesn't help anyone, because everybody's like, oh, I don't like the performance, so I don't like these movies. But it's definitely because they're talking to a tennis ball on a stick. And like you try to talk to a tennis ball on a stick, and the asshole sitting on the couch who knows everything about movies or the Star Wars is going to judge it. When he's not in the room, in a green suit, talking to a stick, it's pretty silly to be that guy.
Or somebody in a head-to-toe green leotard and stuff. Like,
yeah.
You're not going to...
Like, the only thing that made Lord of the Rings work is what's-his-name was there, physically.
Yeah.
And that's what made the performances real in Lord of the Rings. That's why Elijah Wood, when they're going back and forth, he's actually talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And he's actually reacting with somebody, and it helps. Because you can tell there's a more enthusiastic performance, because he can, like, ad-lib and bounce off of somebody else, you know what I mean, and see a reaction from somebody. And that helps for the acting. I'm not an actor, but if I had to act with another person, as opposed to, like, a, blob on the wall or a spot, I would probably pick the other person I could jive off of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's all those last couple movies were. And Mandalorian is not that production. They've proved that with all this background stuff, which I don't know. I'm not going to comment on what to expect for the next season, because I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
I just want to walk into it like I did with the first season.
And honestly, like, I hate all of the... these articles will pop across my Google every once in a while of people trying to guess the plot points and predict the plot points for the next season. And they always bug me because you can tell they're written by people who, like, do actually watch Clone Wars and are, like, into freaking Dave Filoni shit. And so every time I hear they're like, this character might show up, I'm like, well...
I fucking hope not.
I really hope not. Like,
I was so disgusted with the whole Darth Maul thing. And I've had friends who are like, oh, Space Wizards brought him back, and they're like naming off all this stuff. And I was
man.
I was like, at what point to you does that not sound stupid? And they stop and think about it, and they're like, it's Darth Maul, though. I was like, yeah, he died. He's dead.
But he's a cyborg now, man.
Everybody on the planet that watched that first movie saw him die. The Emperor didn't die, because apparently you can't fucking die in Star Wars.
Hey, when's Mace Windu going to make his comeback? He died the same way as all those other fools.
He's a good guy. He doesn't die.
Yeah.
He's the same way as the other people.
Yeah, but, dying from massively high falls into, unknown pits and shit.
It's messed up is the fact that you say that now he's probably going to materialize and be
probably is.
I was a Jedi wizard, and they're like, a wizard.
He's gonna have a cameo. He's gonna be some freaking like paraplegic on some planet, and the Mandalorian's gonna come across him.
I bet you if they ever got that Obi-Wan Kenobi movie off the ground, he was gonna show up.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Because he's in the age range where he's older, and he can get away with like, I'm an older surviving Jedi or whatever, because if Yoda just didn't die from the whole thing, which is total horseshit, you know what I mean? It's like, come on, and pick a lane. Which they failed to do for everything. Like the last Star Wars movie, they just couldn't pick a lane, man.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that makes Mandalorian work is that there wasn't a lot of cooks in the kitchen on this one. There were different directors, but the production was so complicated that there wasn't a lot of like outside interference, because there was different people working in different productions, probably at the same time when they were all doing it. and the actors are just jumping back and forth to film for schedule-wise. So it's hard to rub anybody's the wrong way. You know what I mean? That's what I'm guessing helped a lot with the setup of this whole thing. And I'm hoping they do it again with the second season and bring in new directing talent. I was thinking about Josh Trank yesterday because his movie Capone is out. I think it's out, right?
It's out, yeah.
And I'm going to rent it. I'm going to give money where credit is due. Because I never hated Trank. I never hated Josh Trank. I didn't like the Fantastic Four movie, but I'll be honest, like I was like, it's just throwing spaghetti at the wall. Some of them stick, some of them don't. It was a superhero movie in the height of the fever pitch.
Well, and made under such a timing as to just retain the rights. So it wasn't even,
it's like
from the
Spider-Man,
studio, it wasn't serious in the first place.
Spider-Man, every couple of years, they have to do a Spider-Man film and get it in the can, or they lose the rights. It's in the contract. So if you guys don't know at home, when you see these remakes that are happen every so often where they remake something, it's because the company just wants to hold on to the rights of that movie. So they will quote unquote soft reboot or remake that title, just so that they can keep holding on to it. I'm assuming this might happen with It at some point, or the Stephen King stuff.
Oh yeah,
they're gonna keep circling that and stewing it. I haven't seen Dr. Sleep yet. I'm hoping to check it out here. I'm going to take my little vacation. I'm going to Utah sometime this week. I want to rent different movies. I've been trying to watch. I'm pushing outside of my comfort zone and just looking for random shit to watch. Been deep diving into anime, looking for different ones. Just forcing myself to explore new content. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is
anything really sticking out?
There's been some interesting things that I found. There's a new one. Hulu's running it. It's called ID something. It's on Hulu. I'll just show you what it looks like. Okay. And it's a anime, and it's kind of like, let's say, like Minority Report, sort of, where he's like trying to solve mysteries in real time. They plug you into this machine, and you can recreate a murder that's happening and like tap into the wavelength of this serial killer's mind.
Yeah.
While they're trying to solve, so you can recreate a crime scene the day it happened, but the only people that can use it are somebody that has killed somebody else. So you have to be a murderer, so you have to use the machine. Yeah. So they're all prisoners that are using it. And the one guy is a detective who has killed his wife. So there's a background mystery of like who really killed his wife. Did he kill his wife? Because every time he goes into the machine to solve a case, his wife is there. Okay, and so dies some different way in front of him every time, and he has to watch his wife die over and over and over again. It's really different.
So it's kind of almost Inception kind of story.
Kind of like an Inception story. But I was really digging it, and I only watched like 2 or 3 episodes. A short run, like 12 episodes long, I think. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice to see them take a concept from a different direction. It was fresh. Just felt fresh. It's not a sappy romance. Been digging into all the Gundam series. I just started watching Unicorn. I'm falling back in love with it again. Like I said, you and me have been building these models. I got my Doga. I'm going to start building my Xeon fucking mass-produced mobile suit. You know what I mean? The cool Nazi-looking ones.
Yeah.
I got him, and he's like the full space unit with the shield, rocket launchers, and the axe, and he comes with a bunch of weapons. And like the 100 scale are so cool because like all these, it comes with everything you've ever seen that mobile suit ever have. They have it. Ammo pouches that work, you name it. It's got it all. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And like your ones, those ones are cool because you're doing the smaller ones, the 160 scale,
1/44th scale,
something like that.
Yeah.
Those, I think the 1/100 is where
like recently pulling my old models that I built back when I was like 10 and from between I was 10 and 12.
Right.
Like just looking at the increase in quality from back then till now is crazy.
Yeah, I should have brought. I'll bring the other one next week when they're both done and let you check out the bigger scale ones. Barnes and Noble has the Alex model. You can go buy it on the shelf right now. So if you want to go pick up like one of the master grade ones, that's the only place I've seen in the city that they're just selling them right now.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the coolest models you could pick up. everybody that says online that's like, if you order that one, people usually get 2 of them.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different ways you can set it up.
You can arrange it, yeah.
And it comes with the extra suit armor, the space armor, and the space combat set.
Mm-hmm.
So it like has extra, that 90-ton shell that it wears on the outside.
Yeah.
Space rifle, plasma rifle, extra thrusters on the suit. And then you can go just the straight Gundam, like multi-purpose unit, you know what I mean? So like ground to air, which is how I have it set up now. And you can do so much with it, dude. And it's like, there's, and for $60, I didn't think, I was like, oh, I hope I really enjoy it, because like that's an investment, you know what I mean? But man, I've been having a blast. And it's like, I sat there for 6 hours just putting it together, and I had a great time. Just sitting there, just putting it together. I'm gonna get something like this. You have this paint sitting out. I'm gonna look for something like that, because I haven't done the decals yet, and I'm like most nervous about the fine details. That's what I'm really want to pay attention to, and I'm gonna sit there like with the microscope, or if I have to, or something, and set them just right. But I want to do some detailing on the panel edging and stuff like that. Nothing fancy, you know what I mean, and just sex it up a little bit, but. A ton of fun, dude. For $60, I've been looking at the more expensive ones. There was one they have a unicorn for $200, which is the 60 scale.
Ooh,
the big 12-inch figure,
the real big one, yeah.
And I was like, damn, like maybe, like I might pick it up just to have. Maybe when I finish unicorn, and I'm thinking about it, I might get one of the big ones. But I'm happy with the $60 buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
For the amount of time it's invested into putting into it, and the amount of fun that I had like building it, definitely worth it. And you're talking about like taking the panels off and rebuilding them. These come with an endoskeleton intact. You can take all those armor plates off, paint them, attach the decals, and reattach them easy without damaging anything, which was the biggest thing. So like if you're repainting them over and over again to get it right, it's set up so that you can take as much time as you want with each piece. And I really appreciated like the thought that went into just the model kit alone.
Yeah, that's super cool.
It's just worth the money. I mean, like I was super into them when I was younger. Like you're talking about, the quality has changed so much, and I've never built anything that has that level of detail. Even when you're building it, you're like, how does this fit into the model? And you're putting it together, and you're like, oh, it's because it's like a functioning action figure you're building, and you're like building the piece by piece, but it's like an anatomically correct version of that mobile suit while you're building it.
Yeah.
It's blowing me away while I was building, because I was like, this is just exactly how this should fit on the show. And it's like, it's so cool. The level of detail and like how deep they went into putting these model kits together. And I can only assume that like the better ones are just going to be more in depth. Like the more money you pay, the deeper you can dive into this subject. You know
but that's the cool thing about it is it's you can get as surface level or as deep as you want to go into the hobby.
Yeah, and my kid brother, he's building the smaller ones, and so I put him together like a little kit of razor blades, some files. I got him some fine steel files instead of the bullshit ones like you get at Hobby Lobby, the sanding tip ones. And some of the pliers for clipping the stuff off, and that's it. And if when I build my painting set, looking for something, I might do airbrush. I don't know where I want to go with it yet.
I'm trying to modify the compressor over there to work with my airbrush.
Yeah, is that going to work?
It will. I just got to get the moisture trap put on it. Like I got that little blue one, and it's all right, but it doesn't really have a reservoir, and so you kind of get a little bit of variance in the pressure output because of the diaphragm pump.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so
you're not going to get a consistent spray out of something small like that.
So getting overall coverage, it works, but if I want to like try and get in and do a little bit more detailed work and stuff, I'm going to need something with a better, more constant air supply. So that makes sense. So you did test the. Sorry, I'm not talking into the mic. I'm looking off at our compressors over here. I'm on the side of the table, so I have to look and go like this. But did your fume extractor work? Yeah. Yeah, it works great.
Work really good.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was going to work. I was like, I wonder if it's going to pull enough, because you never notice it pulling whenever you have them on, because it's like a ceiling fan for the. It's a poo gas fan.
It's a poo gas fan, yeah.
for the bathrooms, but I never notice how effective they are because I always just smell poo no matter what. It's just like a make more noise switch in the house. That's good that it works though. Yeah, but as far as like digging into the Gundam stuff, I didn't realize it was going as strong as it's been since the early 90s. It's been getting better and better.
It's been getting stronger lately. Yeah.
And it's I'm hoping for more maybe Gundam games that we can get into because they're doing bullshit mobile games. But back in when Wing was popular, they were coming out with these really strong video games, Gundam video games. And they're doing like the Dynasty Warriors ones, which is really cool. But it's not like some of the other experiences that I've had because I've played some Battles in Space ones where it's like a more legit simulation of like what it would be like to fight in a mobile suit.
Yeah.
And you're flying around and doing the back and forth. But with Unicorn, they are going a different direction with their mobile suits, and I like how they have multi-purpose mobile suits that can transform like Transformers, the tanks, and the jets. They're getting more into like multi-concept mobile suits, and then you have your high-level Gundams. You know what I mean? The ultra high level, like the Unicorn is like it's the mythical.
It's the one it's the mythical one,
for this series. But the Xeon mobile suits are so badass.
They are.
Like those ones, they're beefy looking. And I'm like, oh damn, that first one with those extra wings and that orbital satellite lasers that come out. I was like, that's a sick mobile suit. And then they're just like the Unicorn just wrecks it like right away. It just like lights it up because it's a traditional Gundam against all these
mass-produced units.
These crazy units, and that's a specialist unit that she's flying.
Yeah, that's
a very expensive specialized suit with those extra add-ons and stuff like that, and it's outperforming the basic suits. But for anime purposes, the Unicorn has like this turbo drive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Connects to, it's like the Tall Geese, basically.
Basically, yeah.
It's essentially a Tall Geese Gundam crossover.
Well, that's one where they just, the way they designed it, they just pulled out all the stops, didn't even really think or care about like even the well-being of the pilot when they put it together. They just...
It's essentially Tall Geese. It's basically like they're just doing... It's the Tall Geese of that universe, because there's two different lines, storylines, main universes. The Wing pretty much ends with Endless Waltz.
Yeah.
And then that is the main storyline. So that's like if Tall Geese existed in the mobile suit timeline.
Well, and I love the whole political situation going on in Unicorn. That whole thing gets pretty crazy.
It's I loved being like submerged into it because there was so much going on at first, and I was like, you're setting the stage for all your players, and now you have two different factions of Xeon working against each other. You're having this guy who's basically the resurgence of Char, like Char's
full frontal
reborn. Full frontal is his name, but he's basically Char. Like reborn in 200 years or something.
Well, he's
later.
got. I think they imply that like basically somebody took made sort of a computer copy of Char's brain.
That makes sense.
And they've kind of overlaid it on this guy.
He's basically Char.
Yeah.
So I'm like episode 2, and so like it's implied that because he's wearing his mask and his thing, and he's like, oh, I don't really know why I wear the mask. He's like, I'm not sure why I do any. He's like, I don't know why I do any of this stuff that I do. And so it's like implied because the main guy is like, well, who the fuck are you? He's like, are you Char? He's like, be honest with me. And he's like, be honest with me and be real. And he takes his helmet off. He's like, yeah, I'm not, but I am.
He's like, but I kind of am.
I sound like him. I kind of look like him. I'm not him though. He died a long time ago. And I like it. And that's my setup. So you have the MacGuffin suitcase, which is driving this whole thing forward.
The Laplace's box. Yeah.
And
what's in the box?
You have all your players set. And so episode 2 ends. He's about to escape from the Xeons, their Federation faction or whatever. And he's planning the escape, whatever's the last thing I saw. But they did a good job, like they do with every Gundam, where everybody has shades and colors. And they're not one-dimensional anything. Right.
Yeah. Not one side is, totally the good guys.
And they're playing that tune heavily from the beginning. And that's what it really drew me in, was that they're doing a Gundam story.
Yeah.
Where it's a war And these are just the small pieces. All these guys are just players in the game, man. And their lives are short-lived because they're just soldiers on the battlefield.
They're just grunts caught in the middle of all this.
And so regardless of their feelings towards each other, it's like this is just their job.
Yeah.
And they don't hate each other. Nobody hates each other. But they're like, we're on different sides. We're basically the same. It's like World War I, where nobody really wanted to fight each other. And they were just like, this is it. We have to fight. But nobody really wanted to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was, everybody was just friends before that. You know what I mean? And then the war happened, and they're like, we have to fight my friend from the other country. I write him letters all the time. And like, they're just regular people. Mm-hmm. And it's that's always been the classical sense. I think World War I has always played an influence on the mobile suit era.
Yeah.
It's that political storm and the people caught within it.
And meanwhile, you've got these big entities like these corporations that are kind of playing both sides and just sort of right in the line through the middle of it all and stuff, like Anaheim Electronics and things.
There's beautiful shades to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about, because I love Wing. We've already established how we love Wing, and I love the main mobile suit timeline, the original one, and how it runs out. But I love my side stuff more than anything.
Yeah, and that was one of the coolest things to really come out in the last, 20, 30 years was all these different side stories coming out.
Yeah, like 8th Team. Was really big on 8th Team when it came out. You have the Blood Orphans.
Thunderbolt is another, kind of side story deal there. That one's really cool. That one came out only a couple years ago.
Hulu is really a baller.
They
have a lot of this stuff on there, and I was so tickled to find out. I was like, they have damn near everything on here.
Yeah.
And dub and everything. Like, damn near everything is plugged in already. I was impressed. And it's that side stuff that makes this whole thing work. It's never tried to be something it's not. And it's for people that like Gundam, but it's approachable enough with the mobile suits in the war that anybody can sit down and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take as much out of it as you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's that same tune that they're carrying through that storyline. It's different from Wing, where the pilots of the Gundams are on a suicide mission and they don't care what happens.
Yeah.
And in Wing, they're completely different than how it's played in the mobile suit timeline, because through every other episode, nobody wants to be in this fucking war anymore. You know what I mean? They don't want to be in the war.
Yeah.
And everybody is so tired of killing each other. And that's the thing. It's like they're really good at killing each other. And nobody wants to. You know what I mean? But it's their duty, so they do it for their side. But nobody really knows why they're doing it anymore. You know what I mean? It's been so deep into the war that nobody knows why they're fighting anymore.
Yeah.
And they just keep going like you do. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that. What it brings to storytelling alone. You know what I mean? There's enough there for me to be like, oh man, there's so many factors to carry out through these whole series. But it's rare for anime. They usually just give you a shallow bullshit story, and I'm so tired of shallow bullshit stories and everything. It's okay for the most part if it's something like The Mandalorian, where I was pleasantly surprised going into it, because The Mandalorian was something that didn't have a lot going for it when it started out, and so I had no expectations coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I don't know how to feel about this, and they didn't try to rub your face in it the whole time.
Right.
They were classy about the whole thing. That meant a lot to me. And it was just a nothing story, but they weren't rubbing my face in Star Wars bullshit constantly. Mm-hmm. It's a character drama where you care about the characters, and that's it. You know what I mean? They were classy about the whole thing. You care about your little baby Yoda. He's a major carrying point for the whole thing because you care about the child. You know what I mean? So you care about what this character cares about. So you understand his motivation. Everything's very clear and decidedly so. You know what I mean? Everything is very calculated on how the whole thing worked, but they never overdid anything.
No.
And Gundam, I love it because I can just fucking lose myself in all these details. There's so many details on so many different sides for the stories, so many shades to everything, which is good for me because I want to re-examine it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll come back.
It's something that you can just keep going back to. For people who get super into Star Trek, I would say it's kind of up there in that it there's a lot there that you can go back to, revisit.
And on different viewings, you'll see it differently.
Yeah. Different stages in your life, different perspectives that you have, you'll see things.
I can agree with that. It's
in a different way.
It's set in a way, in a mode, in a tempo where it's almost ageless.
Yeah.
But everybody likes it for different reasons and can approach it for different reasons.
Well, and watching things in a different context, because absorbing television on a weekly basis is very different from absorbing it through a streaming service. And so that,
which was a benefit for The Mandalorian alone.
Which was a benefit for it. But you think of Star Trek now, like going in and watching it and being able to just binge watch entire seasons of a Star Trek series gives people a totally different view on the whole structure of the show than when it originally came out as a just a weekly serialized
and that's
event.
How I feel about Deep Space Nine. I've been having to grind through that first season real hard because I'm like, the first season's really, they're afraid to do anything,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're coming out right after TNG, which was the most successful TV show at the time, probably one of the biggest TV shows period, if you could argue worldwide, because people were big into Next Generation. You know what I mean? It hits in all these different countries, so they were scared to like edge into it, and they're saying the deeper you go into Deep Space Nine, the better it gets, because there's levels, just like in Gundam, where there's different sides playing each other, and you're bargaining over this dimensional rift or whatever. So a whole war starts over it, I guess. But I've been thinking about doing like a weekly watch so that I don't get burnt out on it, because I get burnt out on stuff so easily, and that's
and it's so easy now and it's something that people don't talk about with streaming services now. Is that a lot of these shows, they weren't made to be ingested in this way. And so a lot of, the way that we watch through streaming services can kind of ruin it.
It definitely can. It definitely can.
It can burn you out. Whereas if, you were just coming back weekly, having that space in between to be able to absorb the stories and stuff and enjoy it, and then, maybe catching a rerun once or twice during the week of the same episode, or maybe of one of the previous episodes. That's the way we used to absorb television.
I think, and looking back on that, I think, because I've been having trouble getting through Twin Peaks, because if you jam hour-long episodes of anything over and over again, it really takes the taste out of your mouth of wanting to watch it. And Twin Peaks was big because people were like, I wonder what's going to happen next week. And it was soap opera driven, so it's like you have your salacious whatever thing that happens at the end. And I think that's how I'm going to have to, like, sorry about the loud squeaky chair, folks. I'm trying to make myself a little more comfortable. But The Mandalorian, I looked forward to so much to being like, that's what we're going to watch on Friday.
It was such a callback to that era of being able to enjoy this kind of programming. And
they're doing other stuff like that right now, but this is their off season, so we're waiting for the on season. I want to see more of that documentary stuff that they're doing, little things like Jeff Goldblum's
I hope we get
show.
another season of Jeff Goldblum stuff.
I think he's more than willing to do it too. Is the thing. I'm pretty sure he's filming it, regardless of the COVID thing. Definitely put a lot of that on hold. I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure,
because he can't go molest people and touch them. You know what I mean? As he does, he'll go up and touch your face.
Yeah, this is kind of the anti-Goldblum culture now, aren't we?
Yeah,
with social distancing.
We're all Howie Mandel now. We're all washing our hands after we touch things. Everybody who left at Howie Mandel is now Howie Mandel.
Is now living that life. Oh my God!
Think about that. Everybody who's like, he's funny, he's OCD. We can make fun of him. And they used to tease him on the show and like make him touch stuff, and he's like, I don't want to touch that.
Or have people just glom onto him or something.
And now everybody is that person. And now they're like, he's not so crazy. No, well, now we should take Howie Mandel seriously.
Yeah.
We should have been listening. But it's a weird time for...
I actually saw a great movie with Jeff Goldblum as the villain recently.
Which one?
It was the Artemis Hotel.
When did that come out?
That came out, I think, like 2 years ago. It was kind of an independent action movie. It's got Dave Bautista and... let me pull up a cast list real quick. It's got a killer cast on it. It's got that chick who played the Mummy. The last Tom Cruise one.
Yeah. What's her name from Suicide Squad?
Was she in Suicide Squad?
Wasn't she the bad guy in Suicide Squad also?
No, that's Cara Delevingne.
Oh, that's
no,
right.
I'm talking about the brunette.
I forgot they had to like basically blackface her. To...
It's got Jodie Foster is in it. Sophia Boutella, that was her name.
Sophia Boutella.
The Sterling Brown, the guy who was the bad guy in that Predator movie.
Okay.
But Jeff Goldblum is the kind of the main bad guy. He plays a crime boss who's taken over sort of future LA. It's kind of almost like an Escape from LA type setting throughout it.
He can heal. I think he could probably heal better than
he was a great
else.
heel in it. I mean, they only had him in the movie for all of like 10 minutes
towards the
end. But
nobody can digest that much Jeff Goldblum. Not even Jeff Goldblum. So like his show, I wonder how they shoot it, because it's just him being inappropriate probably with people a lot of the time. If you're a female, he touches you no matter what. It doesn't matter who you are. He'll come up and be like, doo doo doo, and touch your face, and nobody's talking about it. And he's a cool guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's definitely unique and not. I wonder how he's doing in this whole COVID season. He can't touch anyone's face right now. He's probably in mortal peril. You know what I mean? Who knows these days?
Well, now it's going to be like he's going to have twice as much fun with it, because it's going to be like twice as awkward now.
I hope.
Where now he's going to do sort of the weird hover. While
I
also
hope
doing his own sound effects.
Everything's everything's like erotic to him. Everything's like pleasing to him physically. Like when he types, he's, you know what I mean? I'm not going to do the impression. I'm just going to let him stand for himself. We're at a weird time for television. It's about to start picking back up too. It's like this is like a turning point episode for us, because the new seasons are about to start coming out for everything, and we're. This is the time for streaming to really shine, and hopefully they have some aces in the hole that we're going to be seeing. They're going to pull out the stops. There's nothing really on, and people are starting to get antsy. Tiger King came at the right time.
It did.
And it was just a nonsense bullshit documentary.
Yep.
I watched some side documentary about how they directed the narrative so heavily through the whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, you're telling me, because like they actually have you believing that these people are like likable until the end.
Well, and that's the amazing thing about just documentary filmmaking is, and you don't really know it until you kind of get that look behind the curtain. But making a documentary is, you're telling a story, same as if you're making any fictional movie, any kind of.
You definitely have to pick a direction when you're putting
the way
it
that
together.
you film it to portray your subjects is the same as the way that you film your characters in a Star Wars movie to portray different things, and so it's in the way you edit around and edit around your narrative. That Flat documentary, I didn't realize it until I watched it on Amazon recently, but that was actually a different cut than the first time.
Really,
I saw it. Yeah.
I liked it too, by the way.
It was a much better cut than the first time I saw it, because the first time I saw it, my brother was definitely going for a sort of open-ended, and I think it was because the showing that I saw was specifically going to be a showing that guy was going to be at in person, and so he wanted it to be more open-ended, like the whole flat earth thing is, for some people is an open-ended debate, is kind of the way my brother portrayed that cut. Whereas in this one, it was more of a study on people's belief systems and how they build a belief system and build their life around it.
Yeah, I appreciated it because it was he seemed like a really nice guy, and it was never like made to make him look like a fool.
Right. Well, and then my brother was talking. He's like, there were ways I could have totally, cut the film to kind of have this ominous vibe of it's this, insipid, growing kind of belief system that who knows the ramifications of it. And my brother was like, I don't want to tell the story that way.
They make this so many of the documentaries like that though, where
they
they're
do,
like,
yeah.
Look at all these fucking idiots. You're smart and they're dumb, and look at this so it's like it makes you feel good, like watching Intervention or Hoarders or something, where it's like you're really watching it for yourself. You don't give a fuck about if this person gets better or not.
Yeah.
You're watching them to feel good about yourself. That's why they put it on TV, and that's the dastardly sick fuck part about it.
Oh yeah.
And Flat, which is on Amazon Prime right now, if you guys haven't watched it, is a quick 30-minute documentary that Ross's brother made about this guy that he met, who is a local celebrity who is a flat earther and an artist. He does cool like presentations in his yard and stuff. He puts together interesting
little dioramas and things,
thought pieces about flat Earth, and it's just his hobby. And he says in the documentary, he's like, I don't do this all the time. He's like, it's just what I believe. Take it or leave it. I'm willing to talk to people about it if they want. He's like, he's just a nice guy who will talk to you if you want to talk about it. Small town in Texas, I guess, right? And he's just a nice guy. It's just a small Texas town, like every other small Texas town. Only he believes in flat Earth. He has the stuff on his car because he likes talking about it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Maybe it's fun to him to. It's a good way to engage in conversation with people. You know what I mean. He seems like a really nice guy, and like he just has a regular job. He's a regular dude. He's not out there like advocating it in Washington D.C.
Right,
and like
right.
demanding NASA give over the real tapes of the moon like some of these guys are. He's just a regular dude, and the documentary was not tasteless in any sense of the word. It was a very classy take on the whole situation.
Yeah.
And it was just following this guy around in exploring his beliefs and what he believes about it.
Well, and just kind of the effect that belief kind of has, because flat Earth, it's not really based around, and this is a fundamental misunderstanding people have about things like flat Earth and the people who espouse these ideas and these theories, and same with people who get obsessed about the Kennedy assassination and go off about these different things, or are out there trying to chase down UFOs and aliens and shit, is that it's people want to have that feeling of being the one that understands how the world works.
Right.
And people, even within the sciences, you have people who fall into that trap of, well, I'm in the sciences, and so I know, how the world works. It's the same thing happens with people in religions. Is, I'm in this religion of this faith, I've been baptized or whatever, so I understand and I'm secure in the knowledge of how the world works.
It's just a form
Same
of
thing in politics. People, I have these political opinions and I'm in this political group, and so I'm secure in being on the right side of understanding how the world works.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And so you get these people who are just like, well, I'll freaking destroy this guy's belief system by debating him.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, you won't. You won't. You'll be just as successful on that as, as trying to question anybody else's belief system. Yeah. It's and so that was more of what my brother, the way that he built the narrative around in that cut of the film was, to kind of help you understand is that, this is his belief system.
Right.
And everybody's got belief systems. Everybody's got these ideas and wants to be secure in their knowledge of how the world works.
It's a very human thing.
It's extremely human thing. And so it's not something outrageous. It's not something just to lose sleep over, to, get all, irate and get your blood pressure up and stuff and fight with people on Twitter over. It just ultimately doesn't matter.
You've been on Twitter then. Yeah. I should follow more flat earthers on Twitter. I think that would be more entertaining than what's going on right now.
Well, and there's a whole social media presence for these people out there.
I'd love to like just deep dive and like hang out. Yeah. I'm a people watcher normally, and Twitter is my favorite way to like just watch nonsense.
But that's why it's overall pretty stupid where you have these guys like Bill Nye going around where he's like, oh, I'll take these people on. I'll fucking debate them. I'll take them down with the science. And
I would argue that Bill Nye is definitely a predator in the sense that he's no longer like the person we all thought him to be.
No.
And he's just like a Hollywood
personality.
paid off personality. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he's he proved that with his Netflix whatever
series that he did. Yeah,
he wasn't stating any scientific facts. He's just has an aerospace engineering degree, and he's not a scientist. He just gets paid to say this stuff, and has a piece of paper that says he's smarter than you. So people are like, well, he showed me how to build bombs when I was a kid, and tell me how my skin works. So I believe it.
Yeah,
and that's based off of his whole dynamic. And he goes after these other guys. I listened to his debates, and I bought some of his books. And I always listen to these things objectively. But he did a whole book about his debate with the creationist.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's the same concept as what you're talking about. It's him just attacking these people he wanted to have a museum that explained how he thought the world works. And it's the Creationist Museum, which I've never seen. I thought it'd be cool to go check out, to go and actually see it. I love museums anyway. And I've never seen one with a different spin on it like that. Mm-hmm. Instead of just like, here's pretty much how we have things worked out, what we think is going on. And with a Christian backing and ideals applied to it on how that understanding how the world, and I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. I'm not picking one side when I'm saying this, just like with the documentary, I agree with it. And when I was younger, I was like, you pick a side in a debate.
Yeah.
A lot of people pick a side automatically based off of their beliefs. That's why you're watching it. And I watched the debate and didn't feel satisfied afterwards. I was just like, it felt like just an attack on this guy's personal beliefs.
Because it's not satisfactory because Bill Nye, he feels like he's going into it from like where everybody should have these same principles going into something, and if you break those principles, then you fall outside. Then you lose. You're wrong. Then you lose.
Right.
It's winning and losing, except he's gone in with his set of rules on what counts as winning and losing. But the problem is everybody does.
Yeah.
That's everybody's belief system. Everybody's individual belief system is their own standards on what counts as winning and losing. So how are you supposed to fight on that level when everybody brought their own rule book to the game?
And you can't. And it's not, that's not, it's maybe that's too deep of a context for anybody to digest, like the everyday schmo. Because at the end of the day, they just want to pick a side and feel like they're part of a team.
Well, and going into those situations, if you go in to watch it, going off of the same rule book as Bill Nye, Bill Nye's going to win every time.
Yeah.
To you, you're just like, that was, and you'll get satisfaction from that. I'm fulfilled from, and lots of people do, and that's fine. That's fine, but at the same time, like is it overall constructive?
It doesn't do anything for anyone.
No. That's why actually real sports, and for that matter warfare, is itself a much more constructive activity than a lot of debate. Because there's an undeniable rule book that you do have to follow in those kinds of events. In a race, it's the first one to the finish line. In a game, it's the person who gets the most points.
It's a primitive.
In a war, it's the last man standing. Like, it's pretty cut and dried who's going to come out on top by the end. But in a debate where everybody's bringing their own rule,
this is why colleges are so messy right now. But we're getting really political with these, and we should wrap our episode.
Yeah.
We came in with no real direction. I want to do next time. We'll do something on David Lynch because we did watch Dune.
Mm-hmm.
And I did want to talk about Dune somewhat briefly, but we can go eat and then do something because I'm starving, dude. I'm getting to the point where I'm ready to eat right now.
Right on. We will stop it there.